We are joined once again by Anthony Cordesman, an expert on the Middle East, terrorism, and defense policy at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. Mr. Cordesman, thanks again for being with us. Israel is now reportedly considering phase 3 of its war against Hamas. What might it be trying to achieve that hasn't already been accomplished?
It hasn't penetrated deeply into the areas occupied by Hamas. It's done damage to its structure, but it hasn't gone in where it can seize the leaders, really destroy the cadres, defeat it in detail. That's one possible explanation. Another is to try to find ways to secure the border, stop the tunnels, create an area in the borderline with Egypt where Hamas can no longer get rockets and weapons. And the ultimate objective that some people have talked about is destroying Hamas and replacing it with some form of Palestinian Authority force or international force. But one answer to your question is, 2 weeks into this, Israel has never stated its end game or objectives and hasn't described phase 3.
If a phase 3 comes, or if it's already begun, is it likely to mean more Israeli troops inside of Gaza, and could that lead to more casualties on both sides?
Well, any sustained fighting means more casualties. We have to understand that the combat casualties so far have been very limited for a campaign on this scale, although there have been many civilians which have been hurt. To really get intense casualties, Israel would have to go into heavily defended areas on the ground without using extensive air support, and do so on a sustained basis. If it's going to do that, it hasn't announced it yet.
Just to clarify, you mentioned that the casualty rates actually are low. Can you explain that?
When we look at the force, the size of the one Israel has, multiple brigades, fighting inside an area with 1.5 million people, it's been fighting now for more than 2 weeks. We have a total of around 850 Palestinian dead. A relatively limited number of those are fighters from Hamas. Israel's casualties so far are extremely limited. So when people talk about intense combat, it isn't.
You mentioned that Israel has been trying to stop the smuggling of weapons coming from Egypt through those tunnels. Do you think that it's managed to stop it, at least for the foreseeable future now?
Well, the answer to that question is probably no, not unless there are dramatic new security arrangements in the area. These tunnels do a lot more than smuggle arms. They become a key source of the goods that Gaza needs to survive. And as a result, the moment the fighting stops, unless there's some new force, there'll be tunnels in a matter of days.
Anthony Cordesman with the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. Thank you very much.